Welcome to Talk Treatises. Today we are stripping away the commentary, the centuries of footnotes, and all the academic noise to go straight into the heart of one of the most profound and frankly darkest masterpieces of Western thought.
It is a book that demands you look at the world differently. I mean, not just how you see it, but how it feels to exist. It really changes the texture of reality.
We are tackling Arthur Schopenhauer's The World as Will and Idea, specifically Volume 1. This was written back in Dresden, 1818. And right out of the gate, you look at the preface and you realize Schopenhauer isn't here to make friends. He's like the original angry young man of philosophy.
He is absolutely not here to make friends. That preface is a masterclass in intellectual confidence, bordering on arrogance. He tells us straight up that this book is meant to impart a single thought.
Just one.
Just one. He claims the whole thing, despite the length, is just that one thought expanded.
Yeah.
He also warns us that the current state of philosophy is a total disaster. He calls it philosophical sophistry.
And he really goes after his contemporaries. It feels very personal.
Oh, it is ruthless. He specifically attacks Hegel, who was the absolute rock star of philosophy at the time. You have to understand, Hegel was the establishment. And here comes Schopenhauer calling him an intellectual Caliban.
Wow.
Yeah. He accuses professors of philosophy of treating wisdom as a trade, a way to make money rather than find truth. He basically says, these people are sophists. If you want to understand me, you need to ignore them. You need to read Kant. You need to understand Plato. And this is key. You need to be familiar with the Indian Vedas.
That last part is really interesting to me, referencing the Vedas and the Upanishads as the greatest advantage this young century enjoys. That feels like a very early instance of Eastern philosophy merging with Western metaphysics, doesn't it?
It is, and it's crucial to his single thought. He sees a continuity there between his work and this ancient Indian wisdom that his contemporaries were, largely ignoring. And he sets a high bar for the reader. He says, if you aren't prepared to read the book twice and with patience, you should just put it down.
No casual skimmers allowed.
Yeah.
Well, we've got our marching orders. The mission today is to unpack that single thought Schopenhauer promised. This idea that the universe is divided into two distinct but inseparable aspects. There is the world as it appears to us, the idea.
And then there's the world as it truly is, the will. It's a journey from the surface of reality right down to its terrifying core.
Okay, let's get into this. Let's start where he starts. Book 1, The World as Idea. This is the surface. And Schopenhauer opens with a sentence that just sets the ground rules immediately. The world is my idea. Now, to a modern listener, that might sound like solipsism, like only I exist or something.
Right, it's all in my head. But that's not quite it, is it?
No.
It's more subtle, it's more structural than that. When he says the world is my idea, he means that everything that exists for knowledge, this whole objective world, the table in front of you, the stars, your own hand, it only exists as an object in relation to a subject.
And you are the subject.
You are the subject.
Yeah.
So the object and the subject are these inseparable halves. You can't have a view without a viewer.
You can't have one without the other.
Exactly. If the observer disappears, the objective world, as you know, it ceases to exist. It's like a movie being projected on a screen. You turn off the projector, the movie's gone. It has no independent existence except as being projected.
He then dives pretty deep into how our minds construct this. He talks about the principle of sufficient reason. That sounds dense, but it seems like he's just grouping time, space, and causality together as a kind of toolkit.
That's exactly what it is. He's building on Kant here, but he's simplifying it. He argues that time, space, and causality aren't things that exist out there in the world independently. They are forms of our own intellect. They are the structure of the mind itself.
Okay, so like a pair of glasses.
Yes. Think of them like a pair of blue-tinted glasses that are permanently glued to your face.
I love that analogy. So everything I see looks blue.
Right. But blueness isn't a property of the world. It's a property of your glasses. In the same way, time and space and cause and effect are the glasses we wear. We can't see the world without them, but they belong to us, not the things in themselves.
And this leads to his critique of materialism, which I found really interesting because it's still so relevant. We tend to be materialists. We think. Big Bang, then stars, then rocks, then chemistry, then biology, then brains, and finally, mind.
Which seems so logical to us. But Schopenhauer thinks that's completely backward. He says materialism tries to explain the knowing subject by starting with the object. But it forgets that matter itself is just an idea for the subject. You only know about atoms because you have a mind perceiving them.
So materialism is trying to explain the projector by looking at the movie.
Exactly. He says when materialism finally gets to the point where it claims it can construct the mind out of matter, it's just caught its own tail. He says it should break out into the inextinguishable laughter of the Olympians. It's a comedy of errors.
Because it's a circle. You can't explain the thing that creates the picture by pointing at details inside the picture.
That's the crux of it. And he draws this hard line between science and philosophy. Science, what he calls etiology, can explain the relationship between things. It can tell you how A causes B. It traces the map.
But it can't explain the territory itself.
Never. It can tell you how gravity acts mathematically, 9.8 meters per second squared. But it can't tell you what gravity is. It describes the behavior of the ghost, but it never unmasks the ghost.
So Book I leaves us in a bit of a bind. We know the world is an image in our heads, constructed by time and space. But is that it? Is the world just a dream, a phantasm?
And that is the cliffhanger of Book 1. If we only look out the world through our senses, we are just looking at images. We're trapped in the simulation, so to speak. But Book 2, the world is will, that provides the escape hatch. And the key to the riddle, Schopenhauer says, is right there with you. It's your body.
And here's where it gets really interesting. This is the aha moment of the whole text.
It is. Schopenhauer points out that we have this unique relationship with our own bodies. We know our body in two completely different ways. First, we know it as an object, just like a table or a tree. We see it, it takes up space. That's the body as idea.
But we also know it from the inside.
Yes. We know it as will. Think about raising your hand. When you move your hand, you don't observe it like a scientist. You don't say, I send a signal and then the muscle contracts. No, you just will it and it moves.
So they're not two different things, the thought and the action.
They are one and the same thing, just given to you in two different ways.
Yeah.
The act of will is the movement of the body.
The body is the objectivity of the will. It's the will made visible.
Exactly. And here's where he makes this massive leap. He takes this internal experience, this feeling of will, and expands it to the entire universe. He says if our inner essence is will, then we have to assume the same is true for everything else in nature.
So animals, plants, even rocks.
Everything. The dog wanting food, the flower turning to the sun, the magnet turning north, the stone falling to earth. He argues that gravity, magnetism, electricity, these are just lower grades of objectification of the will. It's all the same force.
Now, we have to be careful with that word will here. When we say will, we usually mean a conscious plan, like I will go to the store. But that's not what he means for the universe.
No, and that's a crucial distinction. Schopenhauer's will is blind. It is irrational. It's just aimless striving. Because the will is the thing in itself. It exists outside of time and space. Therefore, it's one and indivisible. He calls it the will to live.
So it doesn't have a goal.
No goal at all. It just wants to exist, and it wants to consume. It just is a dark driving force.
And that leads to a terrifying picture of nature. Because if everything is the will, and the will is one, but it's shattered into a billion pieces in this physical world,
then the will is constantly devouring itself. Schopenhauer describes the world not as a divine order, but as a battleground. He gives this vivid example of the bulldog ant in Australia.
Oh, I remember this.
He says if you cut it in two, the head seizes the tail with its mandibles, and the tail stings the head. The will fights itself. Every animal is the living grave of 1,000 others.
It's a grim picture. A blind, hungry force driving the universe, resulting in a world that is essentially conflict.
Which brings us naturally to Book 3, aesthetics. Because if the world is will, and will is endless, aimless striving, then life is essentially suffering.
He has this concept of the pendulum here that I found really compelling. It feels almost like a biological algorithm for unhappiness.
Yes, the pendulum of life. He argues we're driven by desire. Desire is pain because it represents a lack of something. But the moment we get where we want, we're satisfied for, what, a fleeting moment. Then we get bored.
So life just swings back and forth between pain and boredom.
Constantly. We are like Ixion on the wheel or Tantalus reaching for the fruit.
It feels very modern. You strive for the promotion, you get it, you feel good for an hour, and then you're anxious about the next thing. Is there any escape?
A temporary one.
Art. And this is where he introduces the pure, will-less subject of knowledge. What does that even look like?
It's what happens when we engage in true aesthetic contemplation. When you lose yourself in a beautiful landscape or a painting, in that moment, you stop asking why, where, and when. You stop looking at things as they relate to you and your desires.
You're not looking at an apple and thinking, can I eat that?
Exactly. You're just looking at the sheer idea of the apple.
And for that moment, the wheel of Ixion stands still. We stop willing, so we stop suffering.
Precisely. We step out of the stream of desire. He actually breaks down the arts into a hierarchy based on what grade of the will they reveal. Architecture is at the bottom. It deals with gravity, rigidity, the lowest forms of will.
And tragedy is at the top.
At the top of the literary arts, yes, because it shows human suffering and the self-destruction of the will.
But he holds a special place for music. This fascinated me. He says music is totally different from all the other arts.
This is one of his most radical claims. He says painting and sculpture, they copy the ideas, the forms of nature, they copy the shadows on the wall. But music is a copy of the will itself. It bypasses the physical world entirely.
So it's not a copy of a copy, it's a direct copy.
It is a direct copy. It expresses the essence of joy, sadness, pain, without the actual physical reality. He calls it the metaphysics to the physical world.
That explains why music hits us so emotionally, so directly. It doesn't need words or images. It's speaking the language of the core of reality.
It connects directly to the thing in itself. But, as Schopenhauer admits, art is only a temporary break. You eventually have to walk out of the concert hall and back into the street where the will is waiting. And for a permanent solution, we have to turn to Book 4, Ethics.
And here, he gets into the morality of this nightmare universe. It starts with a concept he calls the principium individuationis, the principle of individuation.
This goes back to the spectacles of time and space we talked about. Because we experience the world through space and time, we think we're separate individuals. I am me, you are you. This creates egoism.
Every individual wants to be the center of the world.
Desperately. Schopenhauer says a man would be ready to annihilate the entire universe just to save his own existence.
But because we know that the will is actually one, that we're all just expressions of the same underlying thing, this separation is an illusion.
It is the veil of Maya, borrowing directly from Hindu philosophy. And this leads to his concept of eternal justice. It's a haunting idea. He says the tormentor and the tormented are metaphysically the same person. The one who inflicts pain and the one who bears it are both the will.
He uses that analogy of the beast Thyestes, who was tricked into eating his own children. But he takes it further, a beast eating its own flesh.
Yes, the world is its own judgment. Suffering isn't a punishment for a specific sin. Suffering is the guilt of existence itself. We are all guilty because we are all the will.
So what is the solution? If we are all one, and we are all suffering because we are this blind, hungry will, how do we fix it?
Schopenhauer offers two paths. The first is virtue, or compassion. This happens when you see through the veil of Maya. You realize, tat twamasi, this thou art. You realize that the sufferer over there is you. This breaks the egoism.
You stop hurting others because you realize you're only hurting yourself. But that's not the final goal, is it? Compassion just mitigates the pain.
Right. The final goal is asceticism, the denial of the will. When you realize the true nature of the world, that it's this endless, pointless suffering, you just stop wanting it. You deny the will to live.
This is what he sees in the saints, Christian mystics, Indian Brahmins, voluntary poverty, chastity, fasting.
They're not doing it to be good in a rule-following sense. They're trying to starve the will.
Yeah.
They're trying to quiet the monster inside. By refusing to satisfy their desires, they're breaking the cycle.
And the final state. He admits it looks like nothingness to us. That's the scary part. It sounds like nihilism.
It sounds like it, but he flips it. And this is a beautiful inversion. He says, to us who are full of will and desire, that state of peace looks like empty nothingness. But to those who have denied the will, this noisy, violent, painful world of ours, this is the nothing. This is the illusion.
It's a complete inversion of values. The world we fight so hard for is the emptiness. The peace of non-willing is the only reality worth having.
It is a philosophy of profound resignation.
Okay, let's unpack this further with some thought experiments. These are scenarios inspired by the text we just covered, designed to test the logic of Schopenhauer's universe.
And disclaimer time. These are not in the book. These are deep dive originals just for educational entertainment.
Experiment number 1. The Cosmic Symphony.
I like this one. It plays on the idea of music as the direct copy of the will.
So Schopenhauer says the physical world is the objectification of the will made into objects. Music is also the objectification of the will made into sound. They're parallel universes.
Right. As he quotes, the world is embodied music as much as it is embodied will.
So here's the scenario. Imagine a composer, a hyper genius, who writes a symphony so complex, so perfect in its reflection of the will, that playing it actually generates a physical universe.
That follows the logic perfectly. If the world and music are two expressions of the same thing, then a perfect musical score is essentially the source code of a universe. If you could capture the exact dissonance of the will to live, the struggle, the resolution, you wouldn't just be describing history.
You'd be creating it.
You'd be creating it.
Yeah.
It implies that our history, wars, evolution, supernovas is just a melody being played out. And if the music stops,
The universe vanishes. Back to silence.
it's a beautiful, if terrifying, way to visualize his metaphysics. It suggests that beauty and order in the universe are just harmonic resonance.
Okay, experiment number 2, the solipsistic feast. This one tests the idea of eternal justice and the indivisibility of the will. Schopenhauer says the will is outside of time. It is one. The tormentor and the tormented are the same. So you invent a time machine. You travel back 24 hours. You walk into a restaurant and you see your past self eating a steak dinner.
Okay.
In Schopenhauer's view, you aren't just looking at yourself. You are the steak.
That is grotesque, but metaphysically accurate within his system. The cow that provided the steak is the will. You eating the steak are the will. The will feeds on the will. Time is just the illusion that separates the jaw from the flesh.
So every act of consumption is autocannibalism. The universe is just a single organism digesting itself forever.
That is the Thyestes analogy taken to its absolute logical extreme. It strips away the illusion of I am eating lunch and reveals the reality. The will is tearing itself apart to sustain itself. It makes the case for asceticism pretty compelling.
It really drives home why he calls existence a penal colony. It removes the ability to say, that's not my problem. In Schopenhauer's world, everything is your problem because everything is you.
Heavy stuff. But that is the single thought Schopenhauer wanted to impart. The world is idea on the surface.
But will at the core. And that will is a hungry, blind giant that we have to wake up from.
It really changes the way you look at a mirror, a mountain, or a piece of music. It forces you to ask, am I driving the car, or am I just the hood ornament on a vehicle driven by a blind impulse?
If you want to grapple with that question directly, we encourage you to check the description for the text and dive into the world as will and idea yourself. There is a richness to his writing, the insults, the examples, the passion that we can only summarize here.
It's worth a read if you have the stomach for it.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. Until next time, keep thinking.